I am unashamed. What about you?
All right, we're still at Duck Commander, which is kind of odd. And we have are you a guest host or are you like number two or?
I'm a guest host.
Oh, yeah.
By the way,
Zach,
Jase,
who is my cousin, because a lot of people say, who is this guy?
How often do you visit? Because I rack my brain.
Do I visit?
And I mean, the Duck Commander compound. And I thought to myself, I said, I didn't come but one time last year, the year before, maybe none. So I'm very rarely back on the premises of where we started. You'd think some old coot like me that started Duck Commander.
You never come up here.
Yeah, and there was me and Jase there for a long time, but it just mushroomed out. But the bigger it got, the less we were even seen. Yeah. So I don't know how to explain that.
Well,
Jay.
I think it's interesting. I mean, we should talk about the history.
We're not very sentimental. I'm not a sentimental type, you know.
But you started what in I think you had the idea in what 1972.
72, I had the idea. Coming out of the duck blind, somebody said.
Well, it was your buddy, Big Al,
yeah,
who was your old drinking buddy. Who, fast forward, what? How many years did it take him to come to the Lord?
Took him 12 years, and once he came to Jesus, and I baptized him, 3 months later he fell dead.
Man.
So he cut it.
He was coaching.
He watched me for 12 years.
You preached his funeral, didn't you?
He was an avowed atheist.
Yeah.
And he told me that I'm an atheist, and he had a health issue, and the doctor said, you have an aneurysm near your heart that could explode at any moment. He said, so take it easy, watch your diet, and we'll do surgery, in the next 3 or 4 months, but be careful how you roll. So it was during that time frame he calls me up, and he said, Robertson, I've been watching you for 12 years from a distance. He said, how in the world did you do that, make that big a change? I mean, you weeded us out, you culled us on the spot, and we never saw you again. What happened? What changed you so much?
Well, that's a perfect lead-in question.
So I I shared the gospel. I drove all the way to Arkansas. I said, I'll be up there. So I go up, he calls me, so I'm telling her on the phone. So I drive to Arkansas. We get in his old Bronco. We're riding around on the roads where previously we'd get drunk, We stayed in the woods all the time, no matter what. So I said, so you're having some doubts about being an atheist? Is that what you're trying to tell me? He said, that's exactly what I'm telling you. I said, sometimes when death is knocking on your door, you begin to contemplate these things about immortality, your mortality, immortality, which is offered. So I went through the whole thing with him. He has like a 30 plus. I mean, he's just as shy of a PhD, brilliant mind. So I took him down there and baptized him. Then 3 months later, he lived a good life. He
was coaching third base when he fell over.
His family called me up when he died. Yeah, he was on third baseline. He was a great baseball coach. They won championship after championship, Junction City, Arkansas. But anyway, they called me up and they said, we want you to do the funeral. And I said, do what? They do the funeral. I'm like, I've never done a funeral before, but from what I've observed, people who do funerals are usually pretty spiffy. They dress up. They're pretty. These funeral home guys, they seem to be kind of
preacher types.
Yeah, preacher types. I said, you have to forgive me, but I don't even own a suit, so I just don't think I would be the type person you would want at a funeral. I said, I just don't. He said, his wife said, well, the family members got together, and Al said, if something happens to me, have Phil come up here and let him send me off. He said he requested that, and I said, well, I'll be there. So all I did was point to the casket where Big Al's body was, which was asleep, and I knew his soul and spirit had gone to be with the Lord, and I pointed over to the casket, and it was a packed house. All the people, he was well known, baseball coach, and a wild one. So basically, I just gave a little history of myself and his life, my life, how they would change us that some of you may not know. They didn't know that. They didn't know he'd come to Jesus. I did, but
No,
they did.
that's the first time they heard of it.
First time they heard
So
it.
then you got to share Jesus with them. Well, I had a
I
similar.
said, I'll just use this opportunity to preach the gospel to them,
Yeah.
and then get on down the road, because I have, warrants out for me from previous episodes. So I said, well, the law may get me.
Like they're still after
They may
you?
cut me some
No,
slack.
I think we looked into
No, it finally died
yeah,
out.
the statute of limitations.
In other words, I left town in the dead of night, and I didn't return for, it had been like a year and a half, and that's when I got lined out. I repented. Then Al, he repents. So out of all of them that I ran with, he was the only one that made it. By the way, all my old friends, they're all dead.
Oh, you
All
mean
of 'em.
all your drinking buddies?
All of them. They're all dead. He's the only one that made the cut.
Wow.
So he's
What a
he
story.
made it. But
And he named
I'm-
Duck Commander because you had taken an old PSO, put 2 reeds in it, and did what you do.
he named the duck
and,
call.
And Phil was calling the ducks, which is a famous blind. There was a cypress tree there at Moss
we
Lake.
were up in a tree.
Is that the one that looks like the nest?
Oh,
There's
yeah.
a picture
Yep.
of it, right? I've
Yep.
seen the picture.
And then a sad turn of events, as soon as the government bought that place, they burned that tree,
Oh,
which
man.
is
It hurt.
somebody should have been put in
That
jail.
was the second
over that.
funeral I went to, Al's, and when they burned that tree down, I went up there 60 miles from here, but I went up there, went back into the river bottom, motored up on it, turned my motor off, and I'm looking at that burned out stump, and it hurt. I said,
Yeah,
about a 800-year-old cypress tree.
Wow.
that thing. Is
They don't make
incredible.
them kind anymore. So, that one was right there on the edge. I'm the one who said, we need to build a blind in that tree right there. That's where most of these ducks want to go. And they said, what? I said, we need to get up in
Did
that
y'all
tree.
did y'all name Alan after Big Al or no?
No, we named him after Alan Ladd in the movie Shane. Remember
Sorry,
Shane?
I asked. I had no idea.
It's
I
not,
don't
not,
even.
not quite as affectionate as you might have thought.
But I remember the line because Big Al said, "You're not talking to those ducks. You're commanding."
Yeah. He
The
said,
duck.
call it the Duck Commander and market that. And I said, I never thought about that. I said, I may do that one of these days. He said, call it the Duck Commander. And he said,
So you'd already had the idea for the design, the two.
he had the idea, gave it to me. He said, you ought to market that duck call.
Well, he means the.
I mean,
name.
the actual two-reeded duck call system.
Two-reeded, bent up with the
Yeah.
dimple. I mean, it was
Yeah.
an evolving process. Of course, then the process. I guess we stayed down there. How long was Duck Commander down at your house?
It was at the house
20
for,
years, maybe?
Yeah, 20 years. The first
This is
20
the-
years.
This is the problem when we don't have Al. He knows all these meaningless
No, he's
facts.
yeah, he's a reservoir of information.
Yeah. So anyway, at some point, I believe during a flood, it got moved up here. I think it was it 91 maybe?
Yeah, 91. There was
The big flood, so we had to move up here, and then Willie took up. I kind of ran it for a few years.
That's a year
you know.
it got within about 8 to 10 inches from being in my house.
But y'all weren't in this
It
building.
was like
in
this
91,
far
right?
under the floor.
I can't remember.
And the moisture from that water being that close to the floor went up through those little particle board floors. And I heard a big racket one night. The water had receded. I said, whew, boy, we cut that thin. Well, it had soaked the floor, old particle board. And when you soak particle board, it gives off gas. It gives off a gas. So we basically were being, what do they embalm me with? What do they call that?
Embalming
Formaldehyde.
fluid?
Yeah, formaldehyde. It was giving off formaldehyde. We were all getting dizzy, falling around, staggering around. I said, I called some carpenter up. He said, man, that's formaldehyde gas. He said, open all your windows and get your family out of there. So anyway, we tore it all out because I just walked in there one night and I heard a big racket, and my living room floor, there were about
buckle.
three boards just pulled loose like that. So the water had receded, and I looked through the floor, and I saw that old Catahoula Cur dog of mine. He was looking up at me on the house. I said, Miss Kay, I went in there, I said, when you see your dog looking at you through your floor, you got to fix your floor.
Yes.
So we tore the whole thing out.
And it's time to
replaced it.
move. So Duck Commander at some point moved up here, and then Willie eventually took over. And it was kind of a deal like, I make the duck calls and he runs the business because Phil said I'm done. And so, but that's why you only come up once a year. I come up more often.
I'm not a businessman.
You paved the way.
I looked at all this stuff in this warehouse, and you know, our bookkeeper's right down there, and there's people in offices, you know, and now we're here back in here. I'm looking around at, you know, they've got my pictures hanging around like that one. Look, I was building duck calls.
I'm not sure they can.
My
see
youngest
that.
one is 42 now. I was probably about 30 right there. And
You actually
look
look
at
like-
what the ravages of time has done there, nephew.
Yeah.
You actually look kind of like me,
Yeah,
or
you
I
really
look
do.
like you.
Yeah, we favor a lot.
We'll have to get a picture of that and put on the YouTube channel. So make sure you go to
Yeah.
YouTube.
From there to here today, it seemed like a long journey.
yeah,
Look to me, it's just long,
it's quick.
just like that.
Yeah, I went out to driving out in Calhoun today because we live in North Carolina now. So, but I drove by where Mom was buried. Your sister, my mom, just about a year ago, and which I never thought I would go back and visit a grave, you know. But I just was driving by with the kids. I said, I want to just go by and see it. I
Have
didn't-
a
I didn't-
moment.
Yeah, I didn't think I'd get emotional. I did, but really because it was just surreal. You know, you're looking at this grave site, which they still don't have the stone up yet.
Your mama was the reason, the catalyst that brought me to Jesus.
And that was
Your
just
mother,
wild.
my sister, and she tells the preacher they bring up there to the beer joint that I had at the time,
Yeah,
and of course that's where we initially started, and she's the one that said Bill, his name was Bill Smith, he's gone on with the Lord, but she said you convert that one, my brother, he'll convert thousands.
yeah. Well, it was.
I didn't know that at the time. Brings tears to my eyes, but I mean that's exactly what happened.
Yeah.
That's what happened.
She had some kind of special gift of kind of knowing what was going to happen. You know, I've said this many times when
She
I
sure did.
visited our church when I was in like, I don't know, 6th grade, and she picked out my wife because she taught my wife in the 4th grade, and she said, "I think that's the girl you're going to marry." Of course,
Good night, Judy.
Yeah,
She's
of course.
some kind of prophetess. I don't know.
Well,
exactly
I'm just
what-
saying she said it. Of course, I'd never paid any attention. I thought, don't
the
mind
6th
her.
grade.
She's crazy.
You can only handle so much.
All right.
Yeah.
And so
called
then
it.
when I met my wife, I didn't even meet her. She just walked by. When I met her, when I was now in high school,
Sometimes
I
that's all,
started
all
dating
it
her.
takes is a walk by.
Well, your mom said, "Hey, I told you, you're dating her." I was like, that was the same girl back in 6th grade? Because then I vaguely remembered that. Because the only reason I remembered it because I thought, boy, she's crazy.
she was a little crazy.
insanity-
She was called crazy by more than one individual.
Insanity run. There's a thin line
line.
of insanity in the Robertson heritage.
Yep.
Hey, let's take a quick break. All right, I'm working on my ad reads here, so we'll make a stab at it. But
Good luck.
but I did think this is interesting because you ran out of food, right? Your food was destroyed during the hurricane, right?
Yep. Well, because the freezer and the refrigerator went out, and my lovely wife said, "Well, maybe if you don't open the door, it'll be okay." But after 3 days in Louisiana,
So you never know when calamity is going to strike, and you're going to need to be prepared. So our partners here have a deal for you. Go to preparedwithphil.com and you save $100 on the most popular kit of a 4-week emergency food supply. $100 off. If you would have had that, you wouldn't have ran out of food.
yeah, and this stuff lasts like 25 years.
25 years by Patriot Supply. So go to preparewithphil.com. That's preparewithphil.com. Save $100 off of a 4-week supply that will last nearly 25 years.
You're kind of raising your voice.
doing it again?
Yeah, you're doing it again.
I'm working on it.
You're excited.
Remember, tone it down a little.
but
I'm just passionate about it.
But it is it will keep you prepared, so it helps you in your mind. But it's also, look, hurricane hits, you're good.
I've actually got this.
He
at the
could
house.
he could hire on, and they would put him in a position for selling the water hoses, because those guys that sell the water hoses, eat this thing, you in. Let me tell you, even Ben, you pull it over. I mean, they're really animated.
And you think I could get a job doing
Well,
that?
you could get a job with them.
Well, we'll see how. Let's make sure that our audience goes and get your food supply.
They're trying to sell a water hose, but they got guys that they're on the same level that you're on.
But this matters. You need this.
Well,
Hey,
this
it's
is
something
good.
to
But
raise your
Phil's just
voice about.
saying, yeah, okay.
A lot of people wish they'd had that Patriot bucket.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is smart, but Phil's in an indirect saying, if you want to try to sell water hoses after this, there may be a career in it for you. I think Exhibit A, not to mention any names, Cy.
Well,
but
that's why-
Cy's proven
that's
you
why-
can be crazy and be functional.
That's why all weird people are gathered. We gather them up down there. That's why so many weird people show up. It's weirdness meets weirdness.
We
and
attract them
that's right. They are one.
because we're weird.
That's it.
Well, when I was out there, I had this moment. To your point, of just the quickness of life. I mean, I'm looking at this mound of dirt that the grass has grown over it now, but it's a surreal moment when you. And they've got our picture there because it's like they're waiting on a gravestone. And I mean, I know this sounds morbid, but I'm thinking her bones are in the ground. The bones of my mother are in the ground, and it was just it was a very sobering reminder of just the shortness and the quickness of life here. You know what I mean?
Mixed with
mixed with hope. Yeah,
I love
absolutely.
1 Peter 1:23. It says, "For you have been born again, not of perishable seed, but of imperishable, through the living and enduring Word of God. For all men are like grass, and all their glory is like the flowers of the field. The grass withers and the flowers fall, but the word of the Lord stands forever." Which is why we've dedicated so much time to the book of John, because the word of the Lord brings us the opportunity to be born again. I mean, that's where John 1 starts. And then you have this term that in our world is almost impossible, which is imperishable.
Yeah.
I mean, what a word to throw around.
It's the ultimate escape hatch, and it's the only one available. It's unless you. I've asked everybody when I'm talking
It's
to
like
them.
the
atheists and
redneck
everybody.
translation of imperishable. It's
I always ask them.
ultimate escape hatch.
Here's my story. And I said, here's the escape hatch. I said, what's your escape hatch? And I said, do you have a story that'll beat it? And all the atheists I've ever talked to, they said, no, the story itself. We're
And it's more than an escape hatch because it makes life here better. So it's not. I mean, this isn't the ultimate destination, but even
it helps my peace of mind.
Yeah.
Well, to get back where we started, I come up here probably, a lot more than you, because they still pay me. And Willie, I told him, I was like, look, I'm at a point here where I'm not going to be this 8 to 5. I was trying to kind of resign, but he's like, no, I'll keep you on the payroll because he's in charge, He said, but when I call you, I want you to come. So I thought, and he said, we'll try it out. So he doesn't call me very much. Most of the time, since I'm more familiar with the mold system and the technical part of the duck calls, when they call me, there's a problem in the design of a call. And so we figure it out and then move on. That's basically my role.
Yeah.
So
Does it bring back memories being in here?
I mean, it does. It brings back. You don't realize how monotonous.
You're a sound. Jase is a sound engineer. Basically, the skill set that put the whole thing into play.
Yeah.
The duck call industry that we're part of, the whole thing came down to a gift. And the gift was the skill set to ascertain what wild birds sound like. Only in America could someone say, they said, what you going to do with your life? What's your skill set? I said, well, I have a couple of degrees, but I think I'm going to exercise my skill set and pursue that. And they say, which is, I said, I know what ducks sound like. It's like playing piano by ear. So if one has a skill set to understand what birds sound like, Jase has got it too. I mean, we know exactly what they sound like, but the key is
we're with them.
But to duplicate that, we've been hearing them all our life, these bird sounds. They all make different sounds, different quacks, different calls, beep, 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 whistles, and there's they all sound different. Well, we got the ability to zone in and build a device that perfectly mimics that. Trust in God and start exercising your skill set. Trust in capitalism because it won't work with socialism. Nope. Got to trust in capitalism, and you work hard. And you say, you look up and you say, then you look around and say, that's how you get pictures on the wall. Trust in God, trust in capitalism, and work hard. You'll get your picture on the wall one day.
Do you trust in capitalism?
Yeah, I mean, look, I like it better than socialism. Yeah. So
it's not a perfect system. It's just better than anything else out there.
Well, there's a
but
reason.
The point is, you
America,
can start from scratch with no paperwork. Someone said, "Well, did you talk with the state authorities about getting a license?" No, we had no paperwork. No, can I start a business? I just went out there and there's a shed there, and I said,
"Well, Phil, that means you probably broke the law."
Probably did. They got rules and regulations. To Trump's, speaking of regulations, Trump goes in there, and the first thing he did is start whacking and stacking the regulations, burning them, get rid of them. That's the way it ought to be in America. If you got an idea, you should be able to pursue it, mold it, fix it, market it. That's the way capitalism works. Now, you start messing with that, and you begin to stymie that with regulations and government edicts. You're getting in the way of progress and what the country's all about. You ought to be able to start from nothing and end up with something. And that's what
it's
happened.
American free enterprise. I remember taking that as junior in high school, and I thought, I like this. Yeah. I mean, I took it in high school. Basically,
this was a great enlightening about what can be done as far as just hard work and have an idea.
Yeah.
But
capitalism, it's the only place you can do that.
But you said something like in the duck call world, like when I've had thousands of times people come through that door and they'll blow a duck call and they're like, what do you think? And immediately I know they're not basing their style on what they've heard ducks do. They just want to go duck hunting and they heard us or others. And that's the difference in what we're doing. Because we have, I don't know how many different duck calls we have now, probably 50. And you say, well, how do you have so many different duck calls? We got all the species covered. But then within the mallard hen, which is the most famous because she's the most vocal.
By the way, Judge, it's an interesting point he just brought up. No one before us had ever incorporated the majority of the species that you actually hunt.
Right.
And build a device that sounds like them. I mean, you see it real quick, but
it was just what, mallard hen, basically?
Well, some of that's right. The mallard hen, because, and look, people, they would go out and they would see some wood ducks fly by, and you've been with these people, and they'll blow a mallard hen call. They're like, oh, there's ducks. And I'm thinking, number one, we don't have wood duck decoys, because back in the day, you didn't.
Nope.
Number two, those are wood ducks. Why are you blowing a mallard hen? I mean, which the duck world, I'm sure, thought the human world was just full of idiots because for years, that was what they were trying to do. And so what we did was, and it was mainly because of Genesis 9, which is the birthplace of hunting. God said, hey, they're going to be wild. Go get them and eat them. So we started trying to mimic the sounds.
I give you the beasts of the earth, the birds of the air, and the fish in the sea. I'm giving you complete control over them. Pretty well whack them and stack them.
Yeah.
But my point...
He said, just as I gave you the green plants, vegetarians at first, but then he said, now I'll give it all to you.
Yeah. But my point was going to be, in the duck call business world, we have like 20 different hen calls because all hens sound a little different. All mallard hens. They're a little different.
Young ones,
Yeah.
middle-aged ones, and old ones.
And then you combine the fact that all people, their aerodynamic structure is different. So you're going to have different sounds. The trick and the hard part of where my job for years and what I'm still doing here is once you design a call that sounds like one of the thousands of mallard hens, you're trying to get all those calls to sound like that call because you have 20 different hen calls. You don't want two of them sounding
So quality
just
assurance
alike.
becomes a major issue.
Well, it's just different.
It's
And so
like
it's like
a
some
clarinet. The difference between a clarinet and a trumpet. You have reeded musical instruments. You know, what is the trombone, the saxophone.
Yeah.
You know, you got reeded instruments. Well, just think about how critical it is for that reed that it's vibrating. And you say, yeah, that's a sax. That's a saxophone. And you see these guys on them. Well, duck calling's a lot like that. It's musical instruments of birds in the wild. So to duplicate that, say it real quick. There's more to it than meets the eye. We spent a lifetime at it.
Let's take a quick break. You know, everybody's looking for ways to save money right now. I just lost my insurance agent. That's a long story that we won't talk about right now. So I'm in the process of shopping for insurance, and I'm going to get on this Gabby insurance. What you do is you get on and you take it takes the pain out of shopping for insurance. Because
I didn't know it was painful.
Well, that's because your wife probably sets all that up, right?
Exactly.
Okay. So Gabby Insurance, you get on and you enter in your information, and they'll link your current insurance account. It takes about 2 minutes, and then you can see these quotes that will compare coverages, and you'll get the exact same coverage that you currently have. But when you do it, you're going to probably save an average of $825 per year. That's a lot of money. On average, their customers save $825 a year. So what it does is you see all these different quotes from different companies, and then you can pick the best one. And it's
I'm 74 at this date of the insurance caper there, but I'm 74, but I didn't have any insurance for the first 50 years of my life.
Because you had no money.
Well, now you have to. You can't buy a house or a car without insurance.
And Miss Kay said, are we ever going to get insurance? I said, when you get more money than you know what to do with, then get every kind of insurance known to man if it makes you happy. But
well, to have insurance, that means you had to have something to insure.
Yeah.
Well, now you got.
We had nothing, so it was beyond. You didn't even contemplate.
So
it.
take this, and now this will save you some money.
This will save you some money. They never sell your information, so you don't have to worry about that. So here's what you do: it's totally free to check your rate. There's not any obligation. It takes about 2 minutes, so you can go right now to see how much you can save on your car and homeowners insurance. Go to Gabby. That's GABI.com/unashamed. That's Gabby. GABI.com/unashamed, Gabby.com/unashamed.
What's funny is the worst sounding duck call that we ever made to me was actually the best seller.
Which one was that?
It was called the old raspy.
Yeah.
It was a mistake in the mold process, and all it would do, no matter how hard you blew on it, it would just that's all it would do. So Phil, to his credit, said, we'll just do this for beginners.
Yeah.
And so
at least they can get a decent sound out of it.
You can just blow. You don't have to have air that's controlled. You can just literally pick it up. Anybody can do it, and maybe it'll work.
It sounds raspy. You don't have to make it sound
That's
raspy.
right. And I thought that'll never work. Greatest selling duck call ever, because people, no matter how they put air into it, it doesn't sound bad. It just and so they started killing ducks.
Plus, it was finally it hit at a time frame that the calls went nationwide.
Yeah.
Via Walmart.
And I think the name had.
Remember, they had a computer
raspy
glitch. They were going to just stock up the stores that had that had a
Well, that was in
duck
Walmart.
paraphernalia.
Yeah, that was back when I was in control. And look, I get this order that was ridiculous. It was like 50,000 old raspies.
They had a miscue on the computer,
Yeah.
and they said this product is going to an astronomical amount of Walmarts where they ain't been a duck.
Well, I looked it up.
Been
It
a
was
duck in 1,000
It
years.
was 3,000. We were selling to about 400 Walmart stores. And I said, how is this 50,000? Because I kind of laughed. So, well, this is not right. So I look it up, and it's all the Walmarts. So I made a moment of integrity there because I could have just took the order, processed it. I mean, I had the order, and I thought, no, this is not right. So I called the buyer.
He was basically, he knew they
I
weren't
knew
going to
this
stock that
was
many.
not right. So I call him up and say, look, first I talked to the guy's secretary, and they're like, no, that's what it says. I'm like, I'm telling you, it's not right. And she's like, well, what's the problem? I'm like, you're sending duck calls to Miami, Florida. There's no ducks in Miami, Florida. And people, and so, okay, I'll get you the buyer. Buyer gets on the phone.
I mean,
look,
not New York, but major cities, metropolitan.
every Walmart. And so the buyer gets on the phone. He said, what's the problem? I said, somehow there's a glitch in your system and you ordered 50,000 old raspies. And he said, what's your problem with it? I said, well, you're sending duck calls to places where they don't hunt ducks. And he said, hey, if you can't meet up with the demand, then maybe you don't need to do business with it. I said, now look, I will churn out the duck. I just wanted to make sure. And he said, hey, that's what we ordered. So I hung up and said, okay.
He told you later, oh, it was a glitch, all right.
Well, right. So what happened was the 50,000, look, then they start reordering. Because if they just sell one, they basically put 6 duck. And now, I mean,
we were getting rich off of a computer glitch.
Yeah.
Jase is trying to talk them out of it. Said, I don't think.
But they finally figured it out.
Well, when we
Yeah.
had the meeting, and look, surprisingly, they sold most of them.
Yeah.
And I figure, Miami, Florida, somebody said, hey, there's a duck call. But I mean, they just, and so when
Walmart actually made us a national product.
Yeah,
so
they
I
did.
salute people say about Walmart, yeah. For rednecks who came up with a little idea about something to be put in the sporting goods store, to us, they really made us a national.
Well, back in the day, I remember.
Even though it was a mistake.
I remember back in the day when it was at the house and you guys would get a big Walmart order. You remember what you guys would do? You would cook a huge meal. You would invite the whole family and any friends you had come down.
We would celebrate.
We would pack those boxes. You guys would have.
Oh yeah.
The pay was the food. That was the pay.
But look, when I met with him the next, because I was nervous because I was like, this was a mistake, and they didn't sell out, obviously. So we go up there, and I'm like, as soon as I walk in, he said, yeah, something happened with the computer, and y'all went to all the stores. And I was like, that's what I thought. I'd already called him, but he done forgot that conversation, And I was like, what you want? What you want to do about it? And he's like, oh, they'll sell them eventually. But let's get back to your 400. I was like, oh, okay. Because I thought he was going to say, we're sending those calls back. And, oh, no, they'll eventually sell.
But the menu after that year, the menu
It got better.
on the riverbank. The menu picked up exponentially. The menu got a lot better after that year.
Yeah, we went from
You got to remember, you said
liver and bologna to
someone said, what's the biggest difference that happened before and after Duck Commander? I said, the menu.
Well, you say that, but now I feel like we come full circle. I would much rather, if you said, I'm going to cook you anything you want, Zach, I would not pick the finest of steaks. I would pick the Opelousas catfish, a fried deer steak. I would pick something that you would get out on the land on the river, the Mayhaw jelly.
Agree.
So it's funny we've come full circle. The best things that we eat are the things that we were eating back in the old days.
That's why we don't eat out. I mean, it's not just because it's a problem when somebody comes up and like, hey, but there's nowhere that I can go eat that's better than what I've been eating.
That's funny. Whenever, by the way, Phil's book's doing very well. Jesus Politics. I remember when we had the initial interview, we were interviewing a new agent, and so our agent Celia Yates comes in town, who's from California. San Diego area, and so he's in there trying to sell Phil on what he can do for the family. He's done a great job, by the way. But I'll never forget. So he's in from California, and all of a sudden, it's about noon. The door swings open, and Jase, you walk in, and you've got about a 20-pound Appaloosa cat. Your hands are under the gills. It's completely skinned. And Jay says, I got lunch ready. And Phil, you get up and you walk, and you immediately walk in there and you start cleaning that fish within 15 minutes.
Cutting him up, yeah. Oh, we did that. We've done that thousands of times.
You can't beat it.
There's something about when fish gets frozen, frogs, deer, it loses something. Because a lot of people, when they eat our products that we're putting out there, they're like, boy, what do you, well, it's fresh, number one. I mean, that, and you're picking the right, when we catch them, I'm looking saying, oh, that there's the special one.
You don't freeze them before you fry them.
Never freeze them.
You catch them, clean them, and eat them.
Well, but I get it, but people freeze them because to me, their schedule doesn't work. But when I catch an Appaloosa's cat, or I go catch some crappie, or I shoot a young small deer, I stop everything and I eat that immediately. I don't care what schedule.
You can't get that fresh.
I mean, I used to tell Willie, I'm like, I'm going to be late back when I did have to be here on certain times. He's like, what you got? I was like, I'm fixing to eat this deer.
let's take a break. So Phil, how's your cell phone situation working out?
Cell phone. I live in a cell phone free zone. No cell phone.
See, you're one of the few. I could not do what I do without my cell phone. Could you, Jase? You might could.
I probably could, but I'll tell you what, during the hurricane, cell phone service has been a problem.
Absolutely. Well,
it's like when you go to a concert, and everybody's on their phone. You wouldn't know this, Phil, but trust me, nobody's phone works. There's too many phones.
Well, our friends at Patriot Mobile are running a deal right now until September 12th. You can choose either a free phone. These are called the school days promotion for all the kids going back to school, but they're not going back to school because they're quarantined. Until September 12th, you can choose either a free phone, or you can get a free month of service when you switch to America's only conservative cell phone carrier, Patriot Mobile. Plus, instead of getting all the hidden fees and funding left-wing propaganda, Patriot Mobile will donate a portion of your bill to Students for Life. So what you do is you go to patriotmobile.com/Phil, and you use the promo code Phil when you choose. You can either choose a free month of service or a free phone. Veterans and first responders save even more. So you can also call 972-PATRIOT. That's 972-PATRIOT, or visit patriotmobile.com/Phil, promo code Phil.
That's the joy of hunting. Well, we started because we were trying to give an explanation on why we're here. And Al, I never have got where his whereabouts were. What's funny is after we filmed our other two podcasts, I was telling Zach, I was like, because when you got to the commercials, I was like, we're the type of people that we say what we're thinking. That's why Phil sometimes has had more awkward moments than most people. But so we were telling Zach, since he's a guest host, we do the commercials that y'all hear, and we're not like most people. We don't read from the page because we're real. We're authentic people. Like us or hate us, it is what it is. And so the last time with Zach, he was you were getting it seemed like a color commentator. And so we were making fun of him. And to Zach's credit, he was like, I don't know why I was doing that. I guess I was trying to be more excited about that. So,
well, what'd you say? I was like a sports commentator when I was reading.
You were like going away from the mic, because I see my wife do that when she sings, and I'm like, is she putting an effect? And you were doing that in the ads, and I thought, why not just say what they do?
Well, I'm working on it. So our ads today.
Jase was basically saying in a nice way, turn it down a notch or two.
Well, your voice was fluctuating, and I thought,
well, Al's a lot more jovial than I am. So
Al was like just being. I mean, he's looking at it. Here's the product.
Oh, he's smooth though.
This is what they do, and so we had a funny moment, but we're doing the best we can. I mean, I was the first one. A hurricane hit, and I was like, the coronavirus is already pretty bad in this area. Between the two things, I was like, let's take a week off. You're like, no.
Yeah, there's no weeks off. We got to get up here. So yeah, we moved the entire studio from Phil's place to right here at Duck Commander. So,
in one day.
Yeah.
I mean, which was incredible.
I say we. Cole's looking at me over there like, nah, I wasn't no we to it.
I like it a lot better down there on the river because it's just.
Well, Phil, you hadn't been to town in 6 months before today.
This visiting town, I've done the last 2 days. I mean, I think old Jeremiah Johnson had it right. I've been to a town.
Well, what's weird is everyone from South Louisiana has come up this way. That's why the traffic's so bad. You can't find ice, and the fast food.
Yeah, I
restaurants
baptized some of them Sunday morning.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, sure did.
Yeah,
they were coming from the 150-mile-an-hour wind. I really felt for them.
Well, that's the real reason we're here, and we're even doing this. I mean, you see Jesus, and you shared that about Big Al, and there's storms in life, and I don't mean literal. I mean, we just had one. But look, I was sitting on that couch. I had about 30 pillows. There were literally trees falling just feet from me. And I thought, okay. I mean, if this is where it ends on this earth, that's fine. I was at peace. And like I shared on the last podcast, I actually went to sleep, woke up to chainsaws. But a lot of people who have no hope, they start having some clarity. And that's why when we go through John and we introduce Jesus, which has been our whole theme of what we share, all of a sudden you see something that makes sense. Not only from a historical view, not only from a biblical view, it just in life. You look at creation. We were talking about the animals earlier and the trees, and I just saw the acorns on the ground, and I saw all these trees die. I thought, but here they come. They're coming back.
Oh, quick.
And it's subconsciously planting that seed in your mind that there's more.
Yeah.
There's more to life than just some weird happening where all of this happened with all these very minute details that all function together perfectly. And all of a sudden, you're just going to live your life and retire and die. What? You're talking about hopeless. And to me, almost delusional.
There's a famous sermon that John Piper gave called I think it's called something like the Seashell Sermon that he gave to a group of young folks, I believe in Memphis. I may be butchering this story, but the moral of his sermon was that do you want to retire and go pick up seashells on the beach, or do you want to go out with a bang for the kingdom's sake? And so when you said that last week about the thought of making all this money and then spending what you can and leaving the rest for your kids to fight over, like that makes me sick to my stomach to think about. I think God has called us to. You talk about this inner longing. Like everybody that listens to this podcast, I'm telling you, or not everybody has that thing in them that is saying there's got to be more than just this temporal existence. There's got to be a point to all of this, and I think that's what we're trying to accomplish here in the podcast is to talk about that in a fun way, but to talk about it in a meaningful way.
I think the best sermon I heard him give, he preached out of Hebrews 3, and I'd never thought about this, but Hebrews 3:1 says, "Holy brothers who share in the heavenly calling, fix your thoughts on Jesus." And he zeroed in on that heavenly calling. It's not a phrase we use very often, but his point, fix your thoughts on Jesus, because Jesus, like we read in John 12, when he's lifted up, would draw all men to himself. Mm-hmm. Jesus is the heavenly calling on earth. That's why he's so famous. That's why we're talking about him. That's why we're analyzing the characteristics of his personality and what he did, and these bumper sticker statements where he says things like, I before Abraham was, I am.
Yeah.
Because that is God saying, hey, here's the answer to what you're searching for.
Those visitors Sunday morning, I said, here's an interesting thing. I said, I'm looking at y'all. I said, that guy over there, right there, he said he was from New Jersey. I said, do you realize how fewer people I've ever laid eyes on from New Jersey? I said, but he's here. He arrived here today and is seated right there. I said, now you folks are from Florida. I said, I flew into Florida, gave a couple of speeches one time. I said, but I don't traverse through Florida. Or then there was deep South Louisiana, and one guy said, I'm from Texas. I said, there's Texas. I said, if you're wondering, I've never laid eyes on y'all till right now. Never met you, didn't know who you were. You just appeared. I said, you know why you're here? I said, why would you come here? I said, all those great distances to get here. I said, heavenly calling. God called you. That's what you're doing here. I said, so I'm going to give you a briefing on what this is all about to make sure you understand that there's a free gift available, and involved in it is an escape hatch that will literally give you life while you're here, with peace of mind, joy, peace, patience, kindness, good, and on top of all that, immortality.
Let's take a quick break, Phil.
So we baptized them. You said, did you catch the coronavirus? No, not yet.
I remember in that sermon that I was referring to, Hebrews 3, his 2 points that he made was, if there's a God, we need a way to God, and we need a word from God, like direction. And as simple as that is, that's basically what Jesus said. He said in John 14, I'm the way. And then John 1 starts off saying, in the beginning was the Word. And you say, well, it seems like a strange thing. We've said the theme of John and Jesus' characteristics, I've mentioned this many times, is love, light, and life. Those three things keep coming up. Not so much the word love, John 3:16 is famous, but just in his interaction with people. But life and light, over and over and over and over and over again. So somewhere in there, God had in mind that you see what Jesus does, you see what he said, how he acted, you will figure out he's the way, and this is the word. This is the instruction. It's just in a being
Plus,
instead of a manual.
Plus, pun intended, Jesus and what he did, what he's now doing, and what he will do. He died on the cross. He was buried. He was raised. He's at the right hand of the Father, constant mediating. The path to immortality. Jesus in our world trumps government edicts, rules. It trumps it all. You say, you're there, thanks. I like constitutional republics. They seem to work a lot better for the kingdom of God. But no matter whether you're a monarchy or you're some kind of oligarchy or some kind of dictatorship, it would be the same with us. We would just have to remember Jesus trumps all government edicts. Go make disciples, Jesus said, and baptize them. That's what we do.
Yeah.
It's just as simple as it can be, but profound ramifications when you start looking out there and saying, where did I come from? What am I doing here? What is there any way out of here? What? Well, the answers are all right here. So, in our case, free of charge.
That's good. Yeah, I think that Jesus, and I keep coming back to this concept of the person of Jesus and not the idea of Jesus. I think sometimes we well, the temptation is to move Jesus into an idea or a concept or a set of principles or values. This is terms we use, Christian values. No, it's not Christian values. This is reality. This is about a person who
That's
is
right.
God, who became human flesh and dwelt among men and became like us in every way so that he could identify with us. So that's how he mediates for us. I think the encounter is to meet him personally, over and over and over and over again.
Yeah. See, I mean, I'll bring something up where I think people have missed what you're saying, because I agree 100%. You know, we came up a few years ago, somebody did, and they said in every situation you say, what would Jesus do? Now, at first, I thought, boy, it's awesome. You know, they had a little, I still think they do. They have little bracelets.
Yeah,
you know.
WWJD.
Yeah.
Yep.
And look, I'm not knocking it, but if you think about it, that infers that he's no longer here. He's like a million. He was here, but he left. So what would he do? But over and over, he said, "I am." So I would like to change that to what is he doing? You know, in my life. Right now, he's living like. So you read a verse, Hebrews 4:12. The Word of God is living and active. Well, most people associate that with the Bible. They'll say the Word it's relevant, it's living and active. It cuts, it divides. But I'm like, but Jesus is the Word of God. Now He's revealed. We have all this in history. But if you say, well, what is the point of the Bible, what would you say?
What would I say?
Yeah. What would you say is the point of the Bible?
I would say to point people to an introduction with the author of their life, Jesus.
I would too. Somehow or another, this turned into a manual and a system of rules or do's and don'ts, and Jesus just became an idea.
Yeah.
That those revolve around instead of a living, active, I am person. That's why people have, and I quote this all the time, but where it says Jesus Christ is the same yesterday, today, and forever. So if you have that approach where it's just an idea, you have trouble with that verse. What does that mean? Well, it means the same thing he said in all these situations when he said, I am.
Yeah. Yeah, because what do they say? This is I've heard it said this is a rule book on how to live. I'm like, no, it's not at all a rule book on how to live. This is
Not at all.
It's a book that introduces you to the creator of the universe. It's a message. It's not even a book. It's a message that points you to the creator of the universe to make an introduction. And when you have an introduction with such an individual or such a being as God, would probably be a better term, he is so amazing that it will change the desires of your heart. And so if I need a rule book on how to live, I'm not going to make it.
So you're driving down the road.
I need a desire. I need my desires transformed, and that can only come through an encounter with him.
So you're driving down the road right after we do this, and somebody pulls out in front of you, and you're like, blankety, 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 blank. Because then you think, well, what would Jesus do in that situation? And my point is, I mean, Jesus is real in that moment. It's something, let's say you do, slip and have a moment of stupidity, which does happen to all of us. It's not like because you read a verse that says don't cuss that you're not doing that, or you got to wait till Sunday to repent of it. To me, that seems to be the angle of religion in our world. Instead of, well, Jesus is living and active. He sees all. He's all knowing. He's all powerful. He's in my being right now via his Holy Spirit. That's kind of my point. So when you say these encounters with Jesus, I mean, how many times do I think about something revolving around Jesus in a day's time? I would say 100 probably.
Yep. Read the text in Romans 13 about the power of love, Jesus being love incarnate. You get to thinking about it, as you say, he never, ever harmed anyone. Not once. He just didn't harm anyone.
Yeah.
And love does no harm to its neighbor.
Isn't that incredible?
Therefore, it's the fulfillment of all the rules and regulations.
Yeah,
Love fulfills it all.
a great
You say you just love your neighbor. You say you won't be getting up saying, like you're talking about, well, if somebody pulls out in front of me, I better watch my mouth. You don't operate like that.
Not only did he not harm them, he respected everyone.
Yep.
Look, read every situation. You say, oh, you're just making that up. Read them all. No matter what they had done, where they were from, he showed them respect. Even at the end, though, the ones crucifying him, he wasn't running his mouth saying, I tell you what, buddy, you're going to get yours. Just didn't do it.
He's the one that implemented God so loved the world. That's every last one of them, every human being. There is but one race on the earth. Look at what mankind did to the truth about races. They're just one race. It's the human race.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Jesus so loved the human race, he sent Jesus. That all you have to do is believe in him and you won't perish. Well, if you look at that, you say, it's for everybody.
Yep.
You know, all this splintering and dividing on what color, where'd you come from, ethnic, this and that and other. Look at what Satan has interwoven into man's thinking, and it gets all bent out of shape if he sees somebody coming, you know, look way back in the past and hold mistakes against them. You just think about it.
Yeah.
How many times we forgive them, Lord? 7, and then call it a wrap.
Yep.
He said 70 times 7. You live a life of forgiveness.
Well, let's end on this right here. That the way you know that your system is probably not in line with the Bible, or if it is does it lead to freedom? Because where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is freedom.
Yep.
And if it's not, there's no freedom in me having to do all the right things with behavior modification. Jesus, he freed you from that. He freed you.
Thanks for listening to the Unashamed podcast. Help us out by rating us on iTunes. And don't miss an episode by subscribing on YouTube, and be sure to click that little bell to get notified about new episodes. And for even more content that you won't get anywhere else, subscribe to Blaze TV at blazetv.com/unashamed.